Ooh. This is the 8-9 combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And let us all pay homage, mate, to the all-conquering Southern Hemisphere as we again collectively dominate the rugby world. Hello, mate. How you doing?
How's it, Brett? I'm in the shadow of the British Museum where I believe Stephen Jones writes from every week. I had a kind of a Larry David moment last night. I took the train from Edinburgh to London, and I wasn't really keen with my tumbly wumbly stomach at the lamb curry that was being served on the train by a very, very grumpy lass from Scotland. So I kind of just held off, and I was starving when I arrived here at Russell Square Gardens in Camden. And so I just took a stroll as the sun went down, and there was a guy selling a hot dog. And he took pains to tell me it was a pig dog, not a beef dog. So I got this big giant hot dog, and I'm not really a hot dog eater, but I thought, oh, I'll have this as I'm walking around in the cold, surveying the surroundings. And had my photographer was following me behind faithfully.
I did
And
notice.
yeah, I ran into a protest, and I'm not going to claim that I have united or found peace in the Middle East. This protest was between two parties who hail from said Middle East. But the fact that I was standing in the middle of them eating a giant pig hot dog did in fact find common cause. And I think for at least 5 minutes while I was being yelled at by both sides of that unsolvable problem, they were in agreement. And I had a Bobby tell me, you best be on your way. And of course, typical me, I was taking, films of both sides. I think I showed it to you. And forgot that both prophets on that score maybe said don't eat the hot dog.
I did not know where that was.
Sorry, I know it took a long time to come to the point. It wasn't a rugby story, but it almost was a scrum. Yeah.
But I'm very glad you got there. Oh, that was gold. It was very, very good. It's episode 40 of the 8-9 Combo Rugby podcast. And it is a huge thank you to everyone who got around the Test match postmortem after the Wallabies come from behind win over England at Twickenham. We were absolutely blown away when it became our most listened to 8-9 Combo ep in just 36 hours. And massive numbers on the YouTube clips as the YouTube video as well. So just thank you.
Hey man, people like winning, and there's no substitute in terms of we can do whatever we want. We can design the biggest interviews and the most beautiful outlines and spreadsheets. But if the Wallabies beat England at Twickenham,
it fixes everything.
Everyone in the world, beside maybe even English people, were on there listening as well because they wanted to have some catharsis. I don't know.
Maybe it could have been. We'll get into the rugby week once again with our cheers and jeers for the weekend. And this is a pre-cheers, mate, because it's sort of linked to our previous point. And that is just a sincere thank you to everyone who reached out to me on the socials, in the YouTube comments, DMs, messages, however, over the weekend, just to say congratulations to me. It wasn't needed, but it was very, very much appreciated. And so just thank you. Everyone saying, we've seen your suffering for so long. It was good to see you happy. So thank you all for the messages. I do appreciate it. My cheers for you for the weekend is actually Ben Youngs, the now former England halfback, who, of course, last week just flat out disrespected Australia by saying, don't waste my time. But to his credit, was back on For the Love of Rugby on Sunday doing the reaction podcast, and he took his medicine and all the humble pie that he was due up front, and he just copped it and he went, yep, I got that wrong. And you kind of got to give him that.
That's a good call. And I think I like the way he went about it too. And I would suspect he diffused it just by doing what he did.
Yeah, he did. So yep, no doubt.
On him.
No doubt.
My jeers. What is my jeers? I don't have that many jeers. Okay, I'm thinking of a jeer. My jeer is an old man, an elderly man in Murrayfield.
My jeers is for preparation for podcasts.
He had a cane. This old man it was long limbed, but he had a cane, and he kept using that cane to whack me on the back whenever I would stand up. Even if there were 7 rows in front of me that were standing up in a cascading array of interests in a fight or a try or
You would
a red
copy it.
card. And I would demonstrate to him and pantomime, what was going on, but he kept whacking me with his cane. So cheers to you, because there's no, I couldn't do anything about it. What am I gonna do? Beat up an old man? Then I'm the bad guy. And if I lose the fight, then I'm really embarrassed. So,
He used to lose. The first full weekend of Northern Spring Autumn Series Tour fixtures has been run and won by the Southern Hemisphere teams, as I've mentioned. And the gods of podcast timing have given us the perfect return guest, and he is up right after this. Now with bonus music. One of the best things about international rugby at this time of year is that as the Southern Hemisphere teams head north for the autumn, spring, that is suddenly rugby writers on the other side of the world are pointing their brilliant prose and their timely observations about our teams and our players. And that was certainly the case over the weekend as we welcome back to the 8-9 combo for the 3rd time, in fact, senior rugby writer for the Telegraph, Charlie Morgan. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Patrick.
I'm very well. All the better for having the story beamed into the green room that began with a lamb curry and then just went round and round. That was what a start.
You wondered where that was going as well, didn't you?
I was genuinely, for maybe 5 seconds after the lamb curry was mentioned, and I was impressed that you turned it down. But then just you had the other things to get onto, so that's okay.
I wasn't sure where I was going with that story either, actually.
Just great moments in podcast starts. It was a big weekend of rugby, mate. A big weekend of rugby results, wasn't it?
I loved it, and it's kind of the point to you related to your point, Brett. Like seeing other perspectives on the team that you kind of are embedded in or invested in is really interesting, because the narratives can shift so quickly.
Yeah,
and them being staged over a weekend. So Ireland playing New Zealand first up, England having played back-to-back games against New Zealand since July, and coming so close in three quite familiar games. You're like, oh, maybe England are better than you think, because Ireland are just being dusted up by a seriously kind of a mature All Blacks performance. So maybe a convincing performance against Australia, and the narrative totally flips with South Africa coming. And actually, it flipped and then flipped again in 24 hours. So,
that's true.
So, yeah, you just don't know which way
it flipped 3 times in the second half alone.
Yeah, it did. And this is like I've mentioned this before, but I used to think it was a real cop out when current players gave post-match interviews and they said, "Look, we're a little bit off here, and when you're playing against the side of such quality, that can be really damaging and blow out on a scoreboard or change the course of a result." I just think in the lead up to the next World Cup, there are going to be these upsets or just results that happen because everybody's quite close. That England have gone down, I think, to 7th in the world rankings. This
they
week.
dropped 2, I think.
Yeah, but that 5 to 7 is a fun zone. Scotland, Argentina, England, because they're all fallible. But they all have qualities, and it's as a whole, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, the people in Scotland did like the fact that they lost by 17 at home and they went up above England.
Amazing. Yeah, sort of okay. Sort of makes sense.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, in a weird way.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. England have another couple of rough weeks, and Australia having to do something wonderful in Murrayfield. It could be very interesting rankings in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll see. We'll start with Ireland, New Zealand on the Friday night in Dublin. As you say, a very mature All Black performance it was, and we sort of talked about it in the post-mortem, Harry, albeit a day later for this particular game, and we sort of said, for all of Ireland sticking close, it's actually a wonder they didn't get beaten by more. Is that how you saw it as well, Charlie?
I think you can't, almost, if you're Andy Farrell, you're going, I can't legislate for that amount of. The handling errors were weird and sort of obviously derail a side that keep keep possession and go through phases and break you down that way. The other thing, New Zealand have been really good on this tour, I think, especially at taking away strengths from the opposition. So for England, they looked at where England are good. England will either, if you kick long to England now with George Furbank and Marcus Smith in the side, they're going to probably get impetus there and start their phase attack quite nicely. Traditionally, maybe before Ollie Chesham's injury, which has kind of changed things a little bit for them, they would want, if you denied them kick return and went to touch, then they would want a good line-out platform. The All Blacks took away both of those because they marked up Itoje really well and kicked contestably with the help of these escorts. Against Ireland, I thought the All Blacks were awesome on maul defense. They're genuinely brilliant on maul defense, and that has been sort of an underrated aspect of how Ireland have gone well against sides. And that followed a little bit on from the World Cup quarterfinal, didn't it? With Geordie Barrett making that unbelievable stop that ended up being the difference. But they just look weirdly. I say weirdly because they're still quite young, I guess, but quite streetwise. They just stink of good coaching, to be honest. And Jason Ryan is doing a hell of a job with that pack. I cannot get enough of Wallace Satiti. I keep saying that I picked him having a big season, but I can't remember which Super Rugby game. I think I've told you guys before, like the Super Rugby stuff obviously down here is in the morning, so I get to watch quite a lot of it with a toddler and a 1-year-old. But he just carried in this game. He looked like a different athlete, and how he's translated that to the test stuff is really cool. Then the other thing, the last thing about them is just how they're timing their replacements and loading their bench really well. So they're coming on so strong. And they look good. They were good value for that.
And that's been an evolution of the All Blacks game, I would say, in the last, basically since the end of the Rugby Championship, because Harry, the way they used their bench through the TRC was a bit curious at times. So they've found the magic sauce there.
It looked like New Zealand had actually gone back to the drawing board, and I know our friend Jeff Park said that was an old school win, and it did seem a lot like a throwback win. Even seeing Smiley Barrett in the stands afterwards, I was there at Aviva, and he was mixing and mingling, and it just had heritage to it. It was a proper physical All Blacks beating. Being there in Dublin, I got to say, and I got these tickets because I wanted to go to what I thought was the fixture of the entire autumn. I thought this was the match, right? There was so much built up around it. Being in the city, so many banners about revenge, big giant ones on walls saying revenge is a dish best served cold in all green. There was so much cockiness in the pubs, and I was
subtle.
thinking about how spicy Ireland's rivalries are right now. It's almost like they've taken the place of the Boks as being the ones that are your second most hated rival or something, because the All Blacks are up for it. Springboks series in South Africa was up for it. There's something about that they're wearing a new crown. So I did look forward to it, and I would say that the game had no flow in the beginning. The home crowd was taken out of it. The biggest revenge stuff was in the beginning, not in the middle, and then by the end they were going for the exits. Charlie, do you think that these two teams almost were obsessed with each other too much and it harmed the quality of the game? I like the game anyway, but it wasn't one for the casual fan.
Maybe not. I mean, I find it so hard to sort of sometimes detach myself and think, oh, what would somebody else watching through another lens think of that game? Because I actually said after England played the All Blacks, well, these two teams like each other too much. England don't look gutted enough, because they're mates with the other side. And so I was so looking forward to the spice of this, and Ioane leading the haka made it really cool. I just think some of his, like, whether intentionally or not, if it's intentionally, he's a comedy genius, because the timing of some of his zingers are just unbelievable. And he might, if he's got a one man or one woman social media team, they're killing it too, because all of that is just top drawer. Sam Cane afterwards, you wouldn't expect this. You wouldn't expect anything else from Sam Cane. But I remember after they beat Ireland in the World Cup, he was asked about the shit Richie McCaw jibe from Peter O'Mahony. He said, "Look, we just, that wasn't extra motivation, but we sort of knew it might be coming, and we were sort of mindful not to engage with it." And then I think I've seen a quote floating around that he was asked again about whether the Johnny Sexton autobiography stuff heightened the emotion before this one. And he said, no, not really. It just reminded me that I'm never going to do a book. So I don't know whether it was maybe how I think Ireland were obsessed with the All Blacks for sure.
Yeah.
But going back, like this, I did a piece before, and I think everybody did a piece on how this rivalry has built. And I think 2022 is the big one, the series over there. And
definitely.
But more so how technically and tactically Ireland pulled them apart, because I think they made the New Zealand props make like 10 to 15 tackles each test. Super clever stuff. But that precipitated a change. I think that was when, I know he didn't play, but Ethan de Groot, Tyrell Lomax, I think that's when they started to become more prominent in that. Give me if I'm wrong, but
end of that year, I reckon they started playing.
Yeah. Because they went straight to, they lost that series and then had to go straight to South Africa, and it was oh my god, but they won one game, right? And then that
second one,
that felt like the start of.
It was the game that saved Ian Foster's time. He was on the chopping block. Yeah,
he got off the chopping block for a year and got back on the chopping block. Yeah, but the no, it's kind of I think maybe that is true of Ireland. Yeah, but then that allowed. Maybe New Zealand had less to lose, and that might have helped them. It's quite tricky, but I just thought the longer. I didn't think that I would have been impressed if. Yeah, I said before I would be really impressed if the All Blacks stay in this game. But if they do stay in it, they've got a chance because of how the weighting of their bench is working. And yeah, they came on really strong, didn't they?
On the role of emotion, I'm just. So post-match, the All Blacks all stayed for a very, very long time, and their smattering of supporters were there, and guys were crying. I mean, Jordy Barrett, who's not, I don't think he's an especially emotional fella, had tears in his eyes. There were supporters who had made special flags or artwork, and they were giving it to the players. Sam Cane was especially emotional. So they sometimes got to lie to the press in the press conferences, but when they're out there in the field with their family, friends, you can see what it meant. And there was there's something very special. It's just that meant the game was especially physical, ragged, rough. I thought the Irish kind of got on top of the Rock at first, because Reitema really struggled to get any kind of flow.
Definitely did.
It was only when Cam Roigard came on that I thought strong arms, strong forearms, big, like really strong hand, scrum off, getting in there and ripping the ball away, sometimes taking a few backward steps before he tried to throw it. And then the Irish set piece creaked. Did you think, like when I saw the bench come on for Ireland, I thought, oh man, it's underwhelming. Peter O'Mahony, Ian Henderson, Cian Healy, Conor Murray. What is this? 1970? What is this? Yeah.
The bench impact was reverse of what we thought it might be, because we had said Thursday last week that holy moly, that Irish bench, there's some experience there. And look at the New Zealand's bench, and there really isn't. Yet they played out completely conversely.
I mean, Cam Roigard was the most influential substitute.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I guess Peter O'Mahony might have been the best of the Irish bench, but that's not good enough.
Yeah. I don't think poor Kieran Frawley. He's never going to play that badly ever again. Or it's not as much stuff it's never going to be that as much stuff goes wrongly again. But the amount of, to your point right at the start about Ireland being the team that everybody wants to beat in a sort of petulant way, that is 100% true now. But they've earned that, I guess, with this period of success. And the amount of messages I had from people going, Ireland look old here. They're finished. I mean, talk about overreaction. It's their first game back since July, and I think the All Blacks have 9 or whatever. So they lost. Yeah, they lost by 10 points. But I mean, it's this fine margins thing. But yeah, also, I wonder the blend of experience on the bench and just pure dynamism. At Twickenham the week before, Pacilio Tosi, Ofatunga Fassi, and Patrick Tuipulotu were the 3 most influential players. I totally agree on Roigard as well. That Reitema, it's kind of a necessary evil, I guess, having to go through games in the Northern Hemisphere where the ruck's messy, where the ball's a bit greasy, and a referee isn't going to be as pernickety against a home side. They are horrible evenings or horrible games for scrum halves to get through, but they're going to be loads better for it, which is kind of the most ominous thing, because before the next World Cup, New Zealand are going to get Mo'unga back, aren't they? Who's just a total gun. And yeah. So Yeah, they'll be all right. They'll be all right, the All Blacks.
Yeah. And in Ireland, I'm not saying anything wrong about these old veterans for Ireland. It's just that their bomb squad turned into a Molotov cocktail squad instead, where it exploded in their own hands. Crowley had such a ragged night that when Frawley came on, I almost felt like the inter-pro rivalry kicked in and he was going to do something better and save it. Everyone was doing hero ball. I mean, James Lowe did one of the best 50-22s I've seen in my life in the short history of 50-22s, but everyone was trying to do one thing. For me, the Irish rise, the fact that they've been one of the best teams is because they are so cohesive. They work in almost a kaleidoscope. It's almost like a turning wheel that's beautiful to watch, but they got to get into a flow. And sometimes you only get into the flow when you've had 2 or 3 phases, because then you get into your attacking shape. They don't have a particular shape from phase 1. So I felt like stop-start helped New Zealand more, which is weird to say because you would think the opposite. But I think maybe Ireland really didn't ever get into an attacking flow in that whole match. How did you guys see it?
Yeah,
you go, Brett.
I can't disagree with that at all. And I think New Zealand were prepared to play the long game. And again, I said on the weekend, when was the last time?
Take the 3.
When was the last time the All Blacks had 7 shots at penalty goal? I still can't think of when that.
And
was.
it didn't there wasn't even a discussion. I mean, the guy of the tee ran on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair sign from the box above, isn't it? Where should we take the 2? Here's your 2. They were prepared to out possession Ireland as well. They were prepared to say, well, we can hold on to the ball for 10 phases if we have to, and then we could kick it or not or whatever. So, yeah, it certainly wasn't the game I was expecting. That's certainly the best way to sum it up, I think, Charlie.
Yeah, but that just that out. So playing the long game, that's incidentally what Michael Checker. So Michael Checker, after his first game here with Leicester, they beat Exeter, who've turned out to be pretty underwhelming massively underwhelming this season. But they beat them with a last-minute maul. And Checker said that the point. So sorry, our major point this whole week was long game. And just a big point to make about the All Blacks, they did that on the back of a 6-day turnaround, having lost Cody Taylor and Bodie Barrett after the Twickenham game as well. So how well that's just going to stand them in such good stead.
Yeah.
Ireland, Argentina this week is fascinating because Argentina are hot. I know they got pumped, didn't they, last game of the Rugby Championship by the Box, but what that one result. And forgive me, I haven't seen. The only thing I've seen is Juan Martín Gonzalez going through to set up the last try, which is just totally. He is a player.
The team try.
Yeah. He is a player that just makes the ordinary so much. But that result, putting 50 points on Italy away, doesn't happen anymore. Really,
no.
They look a lot better. They've looked a lot better than they have done historically, and. That's a real eye opener. And geez, there's some nervous coaches around the Six Nations sides this weekend.
Well, probably the most nervous of all of them is probably Steve Borthwick, and I loved your opening line to your piece of the Telegraph this weekend, where you just said, already just halfway through their autumn campaign, England are in a battle to salvage respectability. 2 wins from 4 this November felt like a bare minimum. And now to achieve that, Borthwick's charges must overturn the Springboks next weekend. I mean, holy moly. Best of luck, Steve.
Yeah. I think he's probably only the most nervous because Warren Gatland doesn't seem to be nervous about what's going on with Wales, which is kind of another story in itself.
Gatland almost challenged the media to say, sure, write that. Knock yourself out.
I think I'm in trouble even when I'm putting on the wrong players.
Yeah.
That's a remarkable situation. But the
next morning, Borthwick picks up the paper and says, RFU says full support. Shit.
That's never good either. I think there are just so many moving parts with this England side. They're almost desperate for. I said to somebody before, I wonder whether Steve Borthwick would like to just fast forward these next couple of campaigns, get a 50% win ratio on them, and be in the summer tour 2025, when some of his Lions are away, but he's got that time. There probably won't be that as many England Lions as would have been expected, certainly at the end of the Six Nations or after the New Zealand tour, and he can get a young group together and just maybe reset a bit. I think also that another kind of precarious situation is the coaching staff and how Aled Walters and Felix Jones going in a sort of, both of them were unexpected. The Walters kind of reasons are pretty well documented and pretty fair, to be honest. I think he was always likely to go back to Ireland, where he's got family ties, where when the opportunity arose. But for Felix Jones to go without seemingly a job to go to is jarring. And they conceded 42 points to Australia, and that didn't flatter them at all. They defended like that was likely, or that was a risk, because they were switching off. There didn't seem to be the trust either sort of on the interior of that blitz or on the edge of it. They were mitigated a bit by HIAs and a bit of a revolving door in the back line, and they missed Curry when Curry went off. But they should be more adaptable. They should be more diligent and sort of on task as a collective, and they just weren't. I have to say, it's a point that's been made elsewhere, but I just thought the balance and the skill of the Australia pack was just superior, like significantly superior. I know it was a 5-point game with a last-minute try, but I think I'd like to think that those points would be made. Either way that game went.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but wonder if much of the fallout from that result is because of the way Australia were. They weren't even underestimated. They were just written off. This was just a game that England needed to win by 30, and were expected to win by 30.
Yeah, the only bit of my prediction that I got right, I said that England would win by 11, I think, which was still lower than handicap. But I said that I thought it was 6 of the same guys on the bench that were on the bench at Sydney for the Bledisloe, and I thought that Australia would give England a really nervy time around 60. It turned out that they gave them a really nervy time from 20 through to 60, and then again at the end, and they just continued to. And the other total gaff that I made, which I haven't said out loud anywhere, but I think is only fair to say, was that having an editor was sort of before kicking, I'm really interested in Suoliti and how he goes, and I was thinking, and I said out loud, I'm not sure how well what he does in league is going to translate that well to union, actually. And he said, well, I've signposted that. And that was turned out that was the dumbest thing ever, because as everybody had said in the week, Joe Schmidt isn't going to let someone play who's not ready. And not only did he, it wasn't like come and have a game. It was, we're going to make sure your athleticism, your skills are allowed to shine, and people are, and even facilitate others. I think he got 4 restarts back out of 5 that were within his reach, which is mad. That is just as far as how important that is for the general shift of momentum in the game. That's huge, and just have to applaud both him and the coaching staff.
A mate, Harry, Steve Lenthal, our colleague of ours, sent me a breakdown of the restarts for the game, and I think, and I haven't got it in front of me, but I think what he showed me was that of the, what was it, maybe 9 or 10 restarts for the game, of the contested ones, England won 1 of them. And so again, you're talking about things that Australia didn't do well through the Rugby Championship. Restarts was, prime amongst that. So all of a sudden, he was this guy who showed tremendous athleticism, and because they were playing him in that one-man in channel, which is very similar to what he was playing in rugby league for the Sydney Roosters this year, he just made it work. And they, as we discussed last week, they played him in a way that gave him familiarity.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for me to overreact too much and say that Joseph's going to be this good against all kinds of different
Yeah.
teams. I think this particular type of game suited him because it was so pell-mell. When I was writing notes, I thought this is way too loose. It's too chaotic.
Yep.
I also think they probably didn't scout him very well. Charlie, you've written about the inexperienced coaches around Borthwick. We often use, discussions about a head coach as like this public breakup, like this Uber driver in Dublin that was breaking up with his girlfriend in front of me and pulled me into the conversation. But in reality, it's also about
Give me
who's
a hot
around
rod,
you. No. And I kind of took her side actually. But Borthwick, you point out in your article, it's his first test head job. Wigglesworth, who I call Gigglesworth because up 15-3 he was giggling in the box, was a player in 2022. You have Tom Harrison, first time 33-year-old scrum coach. You have Joe Abid, a defensive coach per se, not really sure. And then the loss of Felix and Elu. And so I think the discussion in England, from what I can pick up so far from everything you pick up here, is that it's the fragility, the lack of mentality monster, to use Jurgen Klopp's word. If England had been winning all these matches they've been losing in the final minutes, they'd be hailed as one of the best ever, because that's literally what the Springboks have been doing, is just winning close. What do you chalk that up to? The inability to adapt inside the game, to go up on Maro Itoje's try, you think it's all over, and then give it right back. I mean, what's going on? Because it's not just the young guys doing this. It's a feeling of Jamie George. Maybe he's not tough enough. Maybe they missed this concrete iron shoulders of Sam Underhill. Is England tough enough?
I don't think mentally. I think that you're totally right to say when these close games are going against you, and it is this remarkable run now of ones that away from, if you may be unfair to bring in the World Cup semi-final, but if you do, it's now that plus the game in Lyon to win the Six Nations, plus 3 tests against the All Blacks, plus this Australia one. You'd hope they'll get on the end of a right one, but you've got to interrogate it if it's that consistent. And it is consistent. I just think there are, like, for example, they go 15-3 up and they have a line out around halfway, and Ellis Genge is in midfield with Ben Earl, and he throws a pass. He's not looking, throws a no-look pass that goes to the deck. Seuli picks it up, offloads to Kellaway. I think England don't see the ball again until they concede. And I wonder whether it's the intangible of just going, geez, did that good start happen? We're tight again now. What do we go back to kind of wrest back control of this game? And I think you wrote about it in the week, didn't you, Harry? Actually, they find it really hard to wrestle control of a game when they're in possession. They almost need those long periods of defense to do that. And then when your defense is shipping points as well, you're going, actually, all the links of my game are broken here.
Yes, exactly.
What do we go back? Yeah. What do we go back to? And there was
what reset points have we got left?
Yeah. We box kick, and then we box kick, and we box kick. But actually, the crowd hate that. So do we need to go what? And what they're just. It's maybe unfair, but that little period that summed it up for me was that they were involved in this kind of stalemate, leading by 2 points, 30-28, and Harry Randall's on, who is not, I think it's fair to say, not renowned as this super accurate box kicker, but he's doing a decent enough job. Eventually, he gets partially charged, or he gets charged down and goes into touch, doesn't he? And there's another line out. The strike moves have just been really clunky now. They were amazing in the last game in the Six Nations against France, and they've been pretty average ever since. And they work something that is quite intricate, and Lawrence doesn't hold on to it. And he's through at least the half gap if he does, but instead it's almost if you were being kind of I guess if you were weighted towards England, how England's seeing that, it's a 14-point swing. Or it's not quite, because I'm not sure England are exactly scoring from there, but they're certainly kind of making a break. And then you're back into this. There's a neurosis about them, I think, and that's really tricky. I don't know how that gets shaken off.
That was the moment that I put out on Sunday, Harry. That was one of those pictures that I identified. There was lots of space in behind that line, because Sua Ali'i had actually bitten too far in. He dragged Kellaway in as well. So if Lawrence holds that pass, he's almost certainly already in space. He's got winger outside him. Can't think which
it
one
would
it
have been
was.
it would have been Freeman.
Yeah, Freeman outside him. And even though this is all happening on halfway, I'm not sure Australia's stopping them from that point. So it was a real turning point moment, and it was also one of those moments that if like bounce of the ball and Kellaway's just happens to be in the right square meter of turf at that moment in time, and
then running diagonally because he thought, I cannot.
Well, he tried to go right and then realized that's not going to work. I've actually got to jig left and go as far away as I possibly can, and showed enough wheels in the end, Harry.
With the huge diagonal assist, I love it. We're all been in that. It's almost like a bad dream you have where you're being chased by someone and you're not sure you're fast enough. Kellaway was like, I'm going to go right to the corner. I don't care how hard it makes the conversion.
It's that we'll have to ask you about that one day. That crushing moment where you think, you beauty, I'm under the post. No, I'm not. I'm scoring the corner.
I like your moments series, Brett. I liked it a lot. I like it looking back. I kind of did the same thing. I tried to do the same thing, inspired by you. And Charlie, what I saw is there were moments where Henry Slade kept looking like the league convert instead of Joseph Suali'i. And I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek. You lost Felix Jones. There's a shapelessness to the defense where it's neither a blitz nor a fold nor a drift. It's kind of a rinse and repeat. All defenses fold and drift as well. There's not a pure blitz out there. It's the decision when. And I felt like there were meaningful times when Slade did something wrong and it made people on his outside look bad, including sometimes Marcus Smith coming in trying to be a fullback for some reason because Ford has to be on. There's a moment though I keyed in on it was fitness. There was a kick ahead by Tom Wright. It went very long, and I watched to see who got there. Everyone had kind of started from the same position. I mean, bloody Fraser McWright and Harry Wilson got there. What the hell? I mean, how are they getting there quicker than English backs? And so I kept thinking Felix Jones and Aled Walters. Losing those guys, Aled Walters so renowned in building rugby fitness, not some other kind of fitness, not whatever they call Broncos. Like what works in a rugby match is different, and they were clearly fitter. I wrote down in 49 minutes. Wallabies are clearly the fitter side. And then the other moment I had, Brett, was the inconclusive try. What a moment of magic, because it's the kind of thing you hate when it goes against you.
Yes.
But that definitely. Charlie, was one moment I looked at from your side, Ben Earl stuffing up an attacking scrum by stumbling over someone and then running diagonally into his wing, a slide home. Instead of just letting the 9 bullet it out to a guy on the short side and have kind of a big blind side. It was interesting space to work in, and you know that Slide Home loves that. Is that the kind of mentality you're thinking about?
That was like an NFL play, wasn't it? That scrum was like, let's go for a first down and get 5 yards out. And to be fair, they did. I think they did score from. They did score from that after Australia had kicked the touch. But it was just some. But I mean, but that's not. That's not a connected thing to happen. It's just kind of just odd. Like all of it seemed very odd. Yeah, disjointed.
The moment of panic set in when he realised that he was having to beat Rob Valentini on the outside.
Yeah,
oh no, this is not going well.
And that's what I mean. But they looked leggy. They looked overwhelmed from an athletic point of view, from a fitness point of view. You're right. They're one of the. There was a bizarrely long passage in the first half, wasn't there? And at one point, Ellis Genge was the one picking it up in the backfield and actually picking it up and was almost like, can I call a free kick and have a scrum here? Because everybody is good.
For everyone trying to get fatigue back in the game and saying it's wonderful, it's not a good look. When there was the best plays were these short, quick things with a 5-minute ball and play, everyone just looks ragged and no one's having fun.
I think everyone wants fatigue in the 49th minute.
So Brett, there were so many themes from the Wallaby side. I wanted that you have your moment in the sun. The revenge of the rejects. Harry, Len, Noah, Tom. So many people that Eddie Jones said you're not even in the top 35 players, and they were the leaders. Tom Wright had one of his finest moments.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I have to admit I hadn't actually thought about it like that. It was. I have definitely said to you at some point over the last couple of days, I had that great chat with Stephen Larkham 2 weeks ago to do that RugbyPass profile on Tom Wright, and I asked him, are there moments in games where you see Righty do something and you just sit back and go, holy moly, how's he done that? And he said that, yeah, when there's a moment when he's got the ball in both hands and he just suddenly does the opposite of what you thought he was about to do. And he's done it because there's something about to happen. And it's just a matter of, okay, what's it going to be? Like, what's he going to do in this moment? And he had a couple of those moments in the game. It was twice he shaped a kick from inside his 22 and he just stepped off the right and went back inside and made, 30, 40 meters each time. And I think one of them he might have even linked up with Lolosio. They end up making it back to well past halfway, I think it was. And just little moments like that, I was thinking, this is exactly what we've wanted to see at international level for the last 2 years, probably. And what, and you
he's
sort of
he's
think
a he's a no yes guy, isn't he? He's no.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
yeah. Well, no. Oh, no. Yeah, cool. Yeah, good. But you just think, like, what might the shape of the Wallabies have been this time last year if he was, if he was just back to do that job instead of just discarded after 2 weeks? That's the unknown, isn't it?
Yep. I do a team of the week, or I did a team of the week for this year on the Autumn Nations, and it's supposed to do a South team and a North team. It's been a long time since I put 5 Wallaby forwards in the mix. I don't know how it all came out.
5 Wallaby forwards? Wow.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they made it in. I'm saying there were 5 that were definitely in the conversation. There's some really good performances. The Satiti versus Valentini is pretty tough, right? Or Artie versus Wilson. But Angus Bell, I don't know when I've seen a tight forward Wallaby performance as good as Angus Bell's. I don't know what he could have done better. Charlie, nine busted tackles on the English side. He just was knocking people over for fun.
He's a monster, and he's had his injury issues, right? And he was a kid that came through. And do you know when somebody comes through and it's just like, if he stays fit, or however long he stays fit, he will be a world-class player. So it's actually really cool when those guys get a run of fitness, because you can just see them for a prolonged period and watch what they get about to. He actually maybe epitomized another aspect of that England fitness, because England milked 2 penalties from the Aussie scrum, didn't they? I think one on both sides. And then it was actually in the last 10 minutes of that first half, when the creek started happening, they were from scrum free kicks that England had conceded, and then just reacted so sloppily off the back of. One of them was letting Valentini tap and go 10 meters before he was touched, and then ends up going 15. And Tate McDermott is like a little special teams.
McDermott snipes off that. Yeah.
And that is his bread and butter, but he's on for a blood replacement, which actually worked perfectly. And then there's another scrum free kick that England give away, and they go high, and Chandler Cunningham South gives one of those blocking penalties that's maybe a penalty even before this escort thing, because it's just quite careless, and he's obviously worried about Slightholme, who's on under the high ball. So it's that England, there's no one, I think I've written this, but I don't think there's one aspect apart from Tommy Freeman in the air and maybe Marcus Smith being sparky. I don't think there's any one aspect of England's game that's consistent at the minute, and that's so difficult to build from. But Australia did an awesome job at showing that up.
Yeah. No, they did.
There are a lot of calls in England right now to go back to Freddie Stewart on the back. I saw that your team that you've picked mythically, imaginarily for next week against the Box, all you said is bring in Underhill, which might just be an injury issue. But then also you said Alex Coles, Ted Hill. But I see that you haven't called for any kind of parachute in for an aerial guy. How do you see this new no escorts allowed kind of policy up against the Box, who are going to put a lot of box kicks up and now have free shots from Ibn, Peter Steph, Sia, the big chasers, not just the little guys?
The terrifying chasers. No, it's always funny when you pick those teams and then knowing that I've got no skin in the game here. And there's not, my mortgage isn't on this. So have a look at that team. I think I had Freeman at 13 and Harry Randall starting for my first one against the All Blacks, just because I'm quite curious about seeing that. No, there's definitely a case for it. I just wonder whether, I think England will want to put pressure at source on that kicking, and I think they will they did that that'll be a big aspect of their game plan, because they did it very, very well in the World Cup semi-final. They've got scope to do that more without that blocker in place. I think they'll go hard at the ruck and just make that platform that South Africa kick from very difficult. And I think actually that England will fancy themselves at putting pressure back on in the kicking game. Probably expect Arenza and Colby to start. I think England would back themselves at Freeman's fantastic in the air. One thing to watch out for, I think England's team is being announced on one thing to say is ignore my team I've picked, but what England have drafted in Tom Roebuck, who has had a slightly difficult season for Sale, but is really good in the air, is like another Freeman, same sort of profile of athlete, quite rangy. And I wonder whether that's the way they go. But they have kept. It's telling that I thought Stewart was going to have to spend some time outside the squad, and they were going to go with a young guy called Joe Carpenter, who was on the tour and in a similar sort of mold as Furbank. But they kept Stewart around, and I wonder whether that was to see how this escorting stuff played out.
Yeah.
Because if he's there, then England suddenly maybe get a reliable platform from kick return back. But having said that, actually maybe I was going to say no side has had a reliable platform from kick return off contestable kicks, but actually New Zealand that was probably an aspect. Jordan and Geordie Barrett from memory cleared up a lot of quite tricky, the one where you're wincing and going, oh, that's going to be a massive collision because that chase is absolutely flying, but oh no, New Zealand have secured it and now they're on the front foot. There were a few of those moments in Dublin, weren't there? So maybe there's a big case. I certainly think that Stewart actually gives them that solidity, and he's a leader for them. I think we last spoke, didn't we, about after the Murrayfield, and he hadn't played in that game, and Furbank then went on to have a really good game against Ireland. But he's certainly a presence for them, and he's there's a lot to like about Freddie Stewart, very assured guy who's just really selfless, and that is a way for them to go, possibly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it does play out for England next week against South Africa. Out there in Pod World and on YouTube, do go back and find our Test match post-mortem after the England-Australia game, which included Ireland-New Zealand as well. And it's interesting to dovetail this chat into both those conversations as well. There's a little break there. The other games of the weekend, Charlie, Argentina put 50 on Italy in Udine. France did a similar thing to Japan in Saint-Denis, which sort of felt like a training run for New Zealand this week. And then Wales get touched up by Fiji in Cardiff. And you said before, it's a rare event for Italy to have 50 put on them at home these days, but Argentina just ran rampant there, didn't they?
Yeah, I love them. They're so volatile, or they have been, but they're running hot a lot more than they have been sort of previously, or sort of more. They're coming towards a sort of more predictably hot, as opposed to. I mean, they were trash in that first warm-up game against that first World Cup game against England, weren't they? And that's sort of been there. They have had that in them, and if they're doing that less and less, then they're going to knock off some very good teams.
When you see Brett disappears on the screen, that means he's writing down a possible pod title, and a predictably hot is hot favorite.
I was actually making a note of where I've just stuck that break. I'm just doing some admin. Don't mind me. I mentioned a training run, Harry, of France's win over Japan. I mean, Japan have got concerns of their own, but France almost looked like going through the motions at some points.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the game. I was too busy doing other games and watching the Wales Fiji on the big screen, and then recovering from Box Scotland. But it sounds like to me, just looking from the stats, that it wasn't like the French needed a lot of ball. They didn't require a lot
No.
of phases, and they just did that counter strike. It's like a football team that doesn't do a high line. They hang back and they put everyone back in the box. But then when they need to score, they go score.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they kick long. I will say for the French against the All Blacks, that long kick shape that the French have used now for several years, longer than everyone else by about 10 meters. It's interesting to know how that works within this new emphasis. I know Borthwick was filthy about the late change in emphasis, because once the refs are told to do an emphasis on something, it's even bigger than changing a law or a trial. It's like they just
Yeah,
all
it's
on
true.
that, right? So that shape really defined this weekend. And so I'm really curious to see what happens when the French face the All Blacks and they go a little bit longer. I mean, we know what Will Jordan will think, which is let's go to the races. But there's so much pay now on contestables. You
Yeah.
should kick as much as possible, as long as you have an organized chase. World Rugby, with this emphasis, has said, please, please, please do more, quick caterpillars and box kicks, because that's the best quick ball. It's the most reliable, the least risky. You're not going to get pinged at the rock on phases. But it's fascinating. The game within the game is how each team adapts to this sudden emphasis, which does seem to have caught people a little bit by surprise. I mean, both the
It's
ruck rules and this lack of escorts, because it's not like the refs are just saying you cannot do a deviated line to your guy to help him out. They're even kind of saying, like NBA, you have to have a 5-meter radius to land, the landing zone. Like, don't even
yeah.
be in the zone.
Yeah, so there was a couple of penalties blown on the weekend, and it's like Lucan Salakaia-Loto ran a line, and he just he wasn't even subtle about it. His would have been a penalty any time in the last 10
wasn't
years.
controversial.
He was running straight, and then suddenly he just went, no, I'm going this way. Like, he completely changed his line, ran into a bloke. So that was always a penalty.
There were many other ones where people were just loitering in the area, and it looks like to me the unwritten thing or doctrine we're developing now is, as the closer you get to that sort of magic 5-meter circle, you better be actually contesting or get the hell out.
Yeah, you're certainly not going to be able to change your line. If you're going back, you need to be going straight back to the fullback, and that's
Sorry,
it.
are we gonna see 2 or 3 catches go up in the air? Is that the workaround? You're just gonna instead of one designated guy, like 2 guys. Which one are you?
they're the guinea pigs, aren't they? The Salakaia-Loto one reminded me of myself breaking my nose on a teammate's elbow, which must have been like a proper. he was actually a big South African dude, and he caught the ball, and I think the video, it was like nothing. A fly had sort of brushed him as he caught it, and I was like going back. I was going, no, that needs to be me. That needs to be me, and just was, smash my own nose up. But so I felt for Ollie Slightholme, although he didn't look quite as pathetic as I had done all those years ago. But yeah, that's what kept playing in my head. But no, I was giggling watching Angus Gardner's performance in the first game, because he was just so on it, wasn't he? And how remarkably compliant both teams was
true.
But this is the crux, right? It is really harshly done for a while, and then it changes. And hopefully we get, because it was ridiculous before. The escorting before was silly, like the glove or whatever were the team. But that was only, I just think it comes back to the ruck. Like, I think refs need to be really hotter on the 5-second stuff. I like the no blocker, and that makes box kicking quite, you're never going to have that quite really solid, super solid platform to do it off. I think that's the most important thing.
I'd like to see him go harder on the 5 seconds, because there was a number of times across several games over these last 2 weeks where we've heard the referee going, they say, use it, and that starts your 5-second count, and then you hear them say 2, and then in my head I'm going 1, naught.
Kick. No, you get 5. It's like you use it, and you get 5 seconds
use it,
till
you've
2.
got 5 seconds from that.
But
yes, I know what you're saying. Yes,
5 seconds till 2, 3 seconds till actually. Oh, thank God he's kicked it. We can't do a scrum because they're just so desperate not to form a scrum, because they're meant to be 30 seconds and they're never 30 seconds because a prop
Yes.
has done there. Got to get the boots on or whatever. So
I think if a ref actually said 2 and then just went 1, bang, and if they did that in the first 5 or 6 minutes of a game, they're on that for the rest of the game.
I'm always curious as to why these nines need the 5 seconds, regardless of whether they need them or not. If that makes sense, it's always as though, especially with England, it's always like I've got to use up every one of these 5 seconds.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just this.
Yeah.
It's what is so frustrating. It's frustrating for everybody. Is that if you go down to see a grassroots, I know can be a kind of patronizing term, but a local game, these things aren't happening. They're professional rugby problems. Nobody's escorting below level 3.
It takes too much work. You're never going to do the extra work. Yeah, you're going to stay right where you are.
No one can kick chase like Eben Etzebeth.
No.
Yeah. Wales, as I say, going down to Fiji, the narrative is getting louder for Warren Gatland. The concerns are deepening outside the squad, outside the Wales squad, if not within. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Mike Phillips stinging him on social media.
Really teed him up, hasn't he? Yeah.
Felt quite significant. Absolutely let him have it. And yeah, the thing about the wrong replacement is just village. It's like a calamitous sort of, we've lost to Fiji, and also this joke mistake has happened, and that is it's embarrassing. That's a real
that's a third grade mistake. Yeah.
And if you're a fan holding on to the last kind of shreds of investment in a team, that's going to send you to apathy, because it just looks so bad.
It really did. Yeah. You were up at Edinburgh, Harry, at Murrayfield for the Box beating Scotland. It felt like, I've actually thought about this the last couple of days, it probably should have been more than 32-15 on reflection, because Scotland didn't ask many questions of that South African defence, I thought, in hindsight.
They had a patch, and ironically, their best patch came when they were one man down. They played some clever football. The long tackle, the extra 2 seconds on the tackle, the long side ruck where they mount the ruck from the side and then take 1 extra step to the side, straddle it. It's sort of like Irk ruck rules, and they kind of worked for a while. You go with a buddy over the ball. A lot of spoiling tactics, which is what you should do if you're the team that's supposed to lose, especially at home, is let's try to make a game of it. The problem was that there was always the nuclear bomb squad coming on at the end anyway, so you always felt like they had to be up by, I don't know, 7 or 10. They didn't look like scoring a try except for once, and then that was called back rightfully. 4 tries to no tries is usually a pretty good walloping on the road. But it's a sign of the times that none of the Bok fans, nor the Bok team, nor the Bok coaches were that happy. They were actually kind of miserable. So I think that's a good place to be, where you win by 17 on the road.
Only won by 17. Yeah.
And so I think part of that was that the Ruck didn't really go the Springbok way. They had focused so much during the Rugby Championship of getting out of the way, rolling away, clearing the Ruck for the 9, that Scotland just capitalized through Steve Tandy on that exact thing. Like, you're gonna give us a little avenue, so we're just gonna march through. And with a very strange loose trio of Elrich Lowe, Marco van Staden, and Kwagga Smith, it wasn't really a proper loose trio. First of all, it's a very small pack to start. Ox, Bongi, Franco, Marco. It's substantially shorter and lighter than the Scottish pack. So we kind of got bullied a little bit. It was just Eben and Tank Toy holding it up. But once the proper pack came on, it was inevitable. But I would say this: listen, a game at Murrayfield is to be experienced. People must go there. It's a wonderful place to be. Couldn't be friendlier. The crowd as a whole. People inviting you over, having beers with each other, and I enjoyed it by looking at certain players and trying to figure out behind me what the coaches were talking about. Highly animated coaching box for the Boks. Tony Brown is definitely comfortable. He talks a lot. Jaco Paper was instrumental in the halftime adjustment. That was probably what won it, is how can we play this ruck better and not get pinged. And then finally, I really thought I enjoyed watching Finn LaRue uncork a spidery special, and also Andre Pollard outplaying Russell, over the whole game. So, there was plenty to watch there. The no escort rule is definitely good for the box. I think by the time we hit England, it's going to be it's a nightmare. On the flip side, now on the other side, Charlie, you point out the height issue with Kurtley Arends, the Lekkerbecks, and Cheston Colby, but you can also imagine a team where you have Afaleta Fassi, Kanan Moody, and Makazole Mapimpi, and that's just hell.
Yeah. Every time I think of an access point for England into this game, I'm going, but they could just pick these guys who are totally fine there. And the scrum is an access. Well, it's not an access point for England. It is almost like, can there be 4 or 5 scrums in this entire game? That's how it becomes an access point.
How can that be possible for England rugby? England rugby is born on the scrum.
Yeah, it's not. Well, there's a lot. It's the kind of interesting thing is this England A game on Sunday. They're going to fast track a couple of these tight heads that have won the Junior World Cup. So that's potentially a significant game on Sunday for England, because that has to be the start of something. But no, I think England. This sounds obvious because they're the back-to-back world champions, obviously. But I think even if, say, they would have preferred to play the 2015 All Blacks, 2015 All Blacks on the back of the run they're at, other than South Africa, because I just think everywhere they look is a real tough. I think that, as I say, the access, they'll go hard at the ruck, they'll go hard at whoever is at 9. They will look to compromise that kicking platform for South Africa. England's line out hasn't. The two things, I think, the two sort of curveballs that have thrown England are this escorting thing and losing Ollie Chesham, because I think that was set up. They've had Chesham is sort of the Law's successor as far as a hybrid at 6 who can allow you more easily. They're playing Martin there anyway, but Martin isn't a super dexterous line out guy, but he smashes things. So that allows, so that kind of increases the importance on that 6. So they're in a tricky spot. And as you say, Harry, South Africa might concede a little bit of height in the back row, or they might just go, we're not going to give you that in either. So good luck with it.
I'm kind of waiting for Rassie to go back to his old school rugby championship tactics and just go, it's Tuesday afternoon, here's my team. Knock yourselves out, England. Almost throw down the challenge. Here you go. Here's the team.
I'm going to their hotel now, so I think they're naming Thursday. I think they're naming Thursday. That would be cool.
I think they are. But he was very happy through the rugby championship to go, no, we can name on Tuesday. It's cool.
Yeah,
we will name on Tuesday, and you guys can work it out from there.
Yeah, I love that. That was when Wales were going well. That was Warren Gatland all over. But I think he would now prefer to sort of release it football style an hour and a half before.
Go back to cricket, just declare the 11 at the toss.
So many options to do on this matchup. But I do think sometimes Rassie's just bored and he's amusing himself. I don't think it's part of a grand plan sometimes.
But now that people are going to overthink the sort of the fucking about. So happy days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. We should let you go so you can get to that press conference or whatever you need to do. What is the? I'll let you go by asking, what's the story you expect to write Monday morning after this weekend's game's coming?
I think we'll see a reaction from England. I think that they will maybe, but I don't think they'll win. So I think it will be a case of the Japan game, and fingers crossed, because I'm going to that as well, the A-team game, give them maybe a template of how they can really refresh this squad going into the Six Nations and then a quite important summer. Maybe that if that's what I guess I'm hoping to write. I think if it's really they're just the harder ones to write on, just when it's really dismal. So I hope there are kind of redeeming features, redeeming performances from individuals, maybe even facets of the game that you think, right, they can move forward with that. That, I mean, because there's all manner of other ways it could go, to be honest. So we shall see.
It's very true. It's very true. It's been a great chat, mate. It's been a meaty chat. We've got into a number of deep and meaningful spots on a few topics. There's a number of things that we're going to talk about that we haven't got there. So that's always a sign of a good conversation. Thanks for giving us some time and getting through it all. It's been great,
mate. Anytime, lads.
Yeah, thanks, Jolly.
This is the 8-9 combo with Brett McKay and Harry Jones. And, mate, so good to have Charlie Morgan back this week. That was a meaty chat, as I said, but a really, really good one. We got into some good spots there.
Font of knowledge, but also a font of humor and good nature. So always good to have a good, solid rugby man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's actually not much to wrap up from the weekend. In terms of other stuff, the URC, the Prem, the top 14 are all on hold until the last weekend of November. The top 14 might be back the week before, I think, because, France. So we'll be back with games of the week later in the week to cover off another big weekend of Test footy. The Test match postmortem returns late Saturday night, European time, early Sunday morning in Australia and New Zealand. That's following England, South Africa at Twickenham, and France, New Zealand in Paris. We'll cover both those games. So make sure you're all subscribed and following as needed and wherever you need to be doing that. Headlines of the last 7 days, anything stick out to you?
That the Lions tour has been saved. England saved it. There's no longer any calls for replacement of Australia as an opponent.
Yeah. Well, on that topic, the Lions and Wallabies both put their jerseys out, and the Wallabies have gone. They've brought the collar back. It's a real throwback to sort of early 90s era, which is fantastic. Lions jersey, I mean, they've sort of got a collar. They're trying to do it, but there's a lot of embossing on that jersey. There's a lot of intricate detail. Sometimes the original is just the best. Like, this is a retro job for the 50s or something like that. Just go back to what works, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I think the sponsor is also going to be quite large. The
sponsor's a bit grating on the Lions jersey, I must admit. I don't know the company at all, so I'm not going to make any disparaging comments about their products because I don't know what they are.
Let's not do that, because then maybe they should be our sponsor.
And of course they'd be very, very welcome to. We've been big fans of their work for some time, and
I'll draw your name on my forehead.
We would welcome them aboard to launch an in-depth campaign through the Lions tour across Australia next year. Of course, just get in touch with us through the DMs. Final thought then for the week.
Listen, no one can beat this. The idea that you need a cup or a tournament is hogwash. Inside the rugby world, you don't need any of that stuff. You just need proper rivalries, revenge motifs, just testing yourself. The ultimate, the whole word of a test, meaning that who doesn't want to see the French against the All Blacks this weekend? I cannot wait to see what that looks like. Every game a story, every game a new story, and like we saw in Dublin, and then we saw at Twickers, plot twists. Whatever we thought was going to happen, not even close to what happened.
No, it didn't. Are you getting nervous about England already? Because you've got the shakes, it seems. It seems like you're getting a bit nervous about what England are going to do already.
I'm in a very retro room here. It's making me nervous. I'm surrounded by old postage stamps from Southern Rhodesia, Tanganyika, 2 shillings and 6 pence. It's very colonial here.
There's a lot of dark timber.
I walked in to check in this hotel, and I felt like I was time trapped in a Dutch painting. It was bizarre, and I cannot just leave the hotel without 5 guys going, "Hello, sir. Oh, good to see you, sir." It's very proper.
Stay there another day; they'll know your name.
No, I'm out of here. I really enjoyed my time, and I gotta say, it was super fun to see so many people who said hello. People are being less shy now, and so getting a lot more people coming up and saying hello. And it means a lot, I think, to the guys like Brett and I who are doing this kind of thing, is just have a little feedback. And even if it's, a tremendously funny insults, which I got too, I like that. Just attention's good.
It all works. It all works.
Yeah.
Harry and I remain on our socials. I've jumped ahead on the script here. I've gone way too far ahead. That then is episode 40 of the 8-9 combo behind us. Do go and check the show notes for links to the 8-9 combo on Twitter and YouTube. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you can, and make sure you've got auto download and your notifications and all that sort of stuff set to on as well. Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places, and you'll find links on our socials to our written work. Harry's on The Roar a couple of times a month, and my weekly Australian columns on RugbyPass as well. This is the 8-9 combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast Double Act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones. And we'll be back in your ears in just a few days' time with another Northern Spring Autumn Series Tour edition of Games of the Week.
Come play with us. Pew, 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 pew.